I went for that, the placement, and I was not obviously prepared for an interview. In my mind, I was there because it was sort of pressure now. Like everyone's doing something, and here's this guy who is just into sport all the time, but really doesn't have a professional football contract yet. At that point of time, I wasn't really playing for a big club either. Gave so many trials and failed. But again, I was used to failure, and that really didn't bog me down. I mean, I failed one club trials. I went for the other one, and I knew that I was giving it my best. So failure didn't really hamper me. So it was just that okay. Now I can't really depend on pocket money and things like that. I needed a salary, so I went for that job. The interview, and it turned out to be a real estate job. And the main idea was they wanted to hire people who could sell. So I told them about my journey, and they found it interesting. They had interviewed quite a lot of candidates before me. It was a campus recruitment, and they just found me a little out of the box. So they asked me to sell something, and I sold it the only way I knew. I mean, for me it was I connected everything to sport, and they found that pretty innovating, and they offered me the job. And they said, okay, you're selected. And in like 2 or 3 days I got to know that okay, wow, I got the job. And I said okay, let's go and do it. So I went and I did it. You wouldn't believe, the first week of the job, that's when I realized that you know the next time I'm on the field, I'm going to give it more than 100%, because this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I knew at that point I was nobody. I sort of tried to rebound the idea to a couple of friends and even my parents, and said that, I'm not sure if I can handle this. I mean, now there are people like 20, 30 years older to me, guys who've been in the corporate structure for so long. And, I was trying to interact with them, connect with them, and I just couldn't. There was no connection. And that's when I realized that wow, this is life ahead of me. And this is where the next, I think, 3 or 4 months I worked so hard on my fitness and game. I was going to work, obviously I was getting paid a salary, but morning and evening I was working so hard, because until then I was still gifted with a few skills. And whether it was technically or physically, I was sort of gifted athletically, because I played so many sports growing up, or whatever it was. I was sort of gifted. But that's when I realized, man, I need to work hard, because I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And that sort of it helped me, because I did well in the leagues over here, and I started getting noticed a little more. And I knew I was not doing justice to my job. In 6 months I quit. And just when I was doing really well, I got hit by an injury. And that injury, you know it really took a long time to heal, because again, that was the first time in my short playing career. Like, I played so many youth matches, but I hadn't got injured, and that was probably why I did so well. Here, I got injured and I didn't know how to deal with it. So it took me so long to, I didn't know whether to go to a physio, a doctor, who was the right person. And, it sort of made it very difficult for me to come back. And then, I got back the next season. I wasn't comfortable because my injury was still bogging me down. And yeah, it got really tough. I mean, I think mentally also took a toll on me. And that's when I sort of joined a gym, and I realized that, okay, I mean, this looks good. I'm not getting the help that I need, but maybe I can help other people. And that's when I started studying about strength and conditioning. And during the time of my rehab, obviously at that point of time, I also met a few good physios and few good practitioners who helped me to get back. But I started studying about strength training, and how to sort of train athletes. And that interested me a bit. And then that's when I got into certifications. I worked at a couple of gyms, and I did internships, worked under a few coaches. And yeah, that's how I got into this field.
Right, Chelston, if you don't mind me asking, what is the injury that?
It was an ankle injury, to be honest. And it started with a grade one tear. But it just kept getting worse, because I continued playing. And again, really didn't take the best advice at that point of time. So, an injury which ideally could have been sorted out in a couple of months took me 2 years. But for me, I would say that injury was a blessing, because in that 2 years, it sort of, yes, I was down, I was low, while, my other friends had like a lot of people had jobs. Everybody was, could afford that extra meal out or the extra weekend out. For me, it was difficult. But again, I mean, that's the career part I chose. And, sometimes we're really, really low. And I think that's when my parents also started worrying about, okay, is there really a career ahead of him? But again, I think they let me be alone in my childhood, and they let me be alone when I grew up. So whenever I needed support, yes, they did support me. They did grill me as well. Making sure that, I mean, again, from their point of view, they wanted me to do something. So, there was a lot of pressure on me at that point of time, but, I'm glad I got out of it. So, once I got out of it, I think, I started working as a SNC professional, as well as I continued my football professionally. And that's when I saw the best growth in football as well. So, I'm 31 now, and, it's just about 4 years now since I've seen progress in both the sport as well as in my career as a coach.
Chelston, I'm actually glad that I'm doing this interview with you because I do know of many Indian parents at the moment who are encouraging their children. And again, like you mentioned earlier, young parents who want to encourage, give their child the opportunity that they did not have to play football either professionally or, sports as a career in the broader sense. So when you say just let the child be and they'll find a path, do you think that it's only dependent on the child or there are other factors involved as well? Because see, even if you are very talented, what is the percentage that you can make it in football? And I know, and I just also want the viewers to know that we did cover injury. So even if you're the best, injury can change so many things for so many people. But what is the percentage you think that one can play at the highest level, especially in India?
See, I think there's two aspects to this. Okay, from where I've seen it is, some of the players, and you're not particularly talking about football, right? You're just saying in general any sport, right?
Yes, generally in sport, because I'm talk. The question is more directed towards football because you're a footballer. But generally, you also train many other athletes as a strength and conditioning coach. So you would know every sport. So I would want you to be as broad as possible.
Right. Yeah. So in the broad perspective, I would say, see, there's two aspects to it. One is when the child does exceedingly well in his youth career. So his youth career could be anything, between 12 to 18, and after 18 is when you turn pro. Yes, there are a few players who turn pro before 18, but again, that's very, very, very few people, very few children. I mean, athletes who turn pro at an earlier age. So. Now, there might be some athletes who have a wonderful career, in their youth years, but they just cannot translate that into professional sport. Once they get signed into a professional league, or, in football, it would be a professional league. In cricket, would be, say, your national, Ranji Trophy that we say in India. They just can't get the performances out of them, right? And on the other end, where you'll see, some of the kids who don't really do well in their youth years, but, probably they are late developers, and they really rise up, once they're turning 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe sometime even 21 or 22, right? So you can't really predict this. So, my advice to parents as well, or to, young athletes, is there's no clear route to take to sport. If you want to become, say, an engineer, you know exactly what to do, right? If you want to become a doctor, there is a clear path, the clear route to take, right? Yes, there is maybe first year college, second year college, third year colleges, and so on and so forth, but still the route is the same. But in professional sport, it's not really one way, right? Firstly, obviously, it depends on, the sport is, I know most of the sports that I know of, say, for example, the popular ones, cricket and football and, maybe even basketball. You got to start with age group, okay? And post age group, obviously, you try to get into your national teams in the age group level. Um, Post that, you all have to play for your state or you have to play for a major club, right? And again, there is more chances of you playing for a major club or playing for your senior team if you played youth football, but that's not a compulsory mandate that you have to do it, right? If you perform at some later stage, you'll still be considered. So there's no one clear route to take. We have to also take into consideration early developers and late developers. So, I would just say, again, coming back to the mindset of the child, you sort of guide them in the right direction, but stay out of the coaching bit and stay out of, really putting pressure on them, because at the end of the day, it's them who needs to really, it's the child or the athlete who really needs to sort of say that, okay, I will do what it takes to, sort of make it to the next level. So obviously, exposure is really important. Like I say, when sometimes I see a lot of the younger athletes, maybe they're not exposed to professional athletes too much. So they don't know what it is to live like a professional athlete, how much it takes to, in terms of, what sort of food you eat, how many hours you sleep, the number of things that you sacrifice growing up, right? Maybe not going for birthday parties, maybe not having that slice of cake, because all this is, for example, in GCC, no Coke. If you say no Coke and no Pepsi, wow, the stares that you get is like, like, what? You're not having Coke or Pepsi, but yeah, that's what it takes. I mean, those are the things that the parents need to guide the children, because as a child, he's seeing or she's seeing so many others doing it, right? So you know, um, obviously the body language would be like, okay, I'll follow them. I want to have this. But no, those things ideally you need to cut off, because if you want to turn pro, you got to train like a pro, you got to act like a pro, right? You got to be around pros, right? So these are the small things I think you need to sacrifice, and that's where the parents come in. But from the coaching and technical aspect, I would say, that is more of a coach's role, and to leave that to the coach. Another example I'd give you is, there are a lot of baby leagues that are happening around now in the, in India, I would say, or, at least particularly in Bangalore where I am. And sometimes it's really nice to just go around and see these games and, just sit around and, see young talent out there. And for me, what's really encouraging is, young parents, when I say young parents, in their 30s and 40s, like you said, who are very passionate, some of them who have played the sport and some of them who haven't, really encouraging their child and, getting them early in the morning, coming there, sitting in the hot sun, cheering for them, that sort of is such a good feeling. But for me, what is a turn off is, a lot of time you'll be like, the parents saying, hey, kick there, do this, do that, do this. That's not their job. You know, that's the coach's job. And I would say it's like a request to parents watching, no matter what sport your child is in, leave the coaching to the coach. You're paying the coach, let the coach do the job. Regarding the other aspects, when I say, the eating, the sleeping, maybe, certain discipline aspects, I think that's where they can come in. But the technical aspect needs to be left to the coach.
Jason, one last question before we get this thing done. Uh, Say, for example, there's a very talented child who studied in the GCC, studies here till 12th standard, decides to go back for college. And the coach over there in the local area or the local club, would they be open to taking an outsider per se? And the reason I'm using a very strong word like the outsider is because when I came in to Mangalore, even I was not considered the local boy, although I am technically from Mangalore. It was very difficult for me to get in because one thing is the language. And I'm not saying no, it was very unfair. No, it's the only right thing to do because, yes, you have language constraints, you have so many other things, and you just show up and you decide that, okay, I'm going to play for the club. But then in that way, how can this person get an opportunity?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So again, like there's no one answer to it, or because it's not really it's generally you can't say this happens or that happens, because it really depends on the coach and the scenario, and it could depend on that athlete as well. One example I'd like to give you is there's this Indian football player named Sahal. He studied in the Middle East and was a great talent. So he went to Kerala for his bachelor's, and he was outstanding. I mean, not to be seen or heard of in his youth football, but all of a sudden, at 21 years old, he was, in the Kerala state team, did exceedingly well, caught all the eyeballs, got signed up for Kerala Blasters, and playing in Kochi in front of 80,000 fans. Today has one of the biggest Indian contracts. He's right now part of the national team. So, if someone like him can do it, I think if you really are talented and if you think you have what it takes to the next level, you can make it. I mean, it's all about, I would say it's all about that individual as such. Yes, like you said, there can be some ifs and buts here and there, but again, like, the road ahead is not always clear. You know, one advice again would be what has really worked for me is working with different cultures. Like to be honest, see, Calvin, like you said, they considered you from Tamil Nadu. The thing about, or the beauty about India is we're such a vast country. We're so big, So how I behave because I'm South Indian, someone from the Northeast would have completely different, upbringing and completely different food habits. Similarly, someone from the North and someone from the West would be so different. We are all so different from each other. We don't even speak the same language, but again, we all play in the same team. We represent the same country. So I don't think just because you sort of, if someone's an NRI, he's not Indian. He's still India. He's still Indian at the end of it, right? He's still holding an Indian passport. And I feel, one connection. You got to make a connection. Say, for example, if you're going to play for that club, for me, what has worked with, because I've not always played for my local club, right? I have, the only opportunity you get to grow is to go out, right? So when I don't play for my local club, I do my research. I learn a lot about that club. I learn a lot about the people in the club. So when I'm entering, I'm the newcomer, but everybody else is someone that I should know about, right? And you sort of gel that way. So you make your presence felt. You need to fit in, to be honest. I mean, like, it's a team sport at the end of it. So if you're playing a team sport, like I said right from the beginning, you got to be a team player. So you can't let any egos affect you. Obviously, someone in the Middle East has had a lot better facilities, even if they've not played the highest level of footballers than football. I mean, any sport for that matter. They've had better facilities growing up as compared to what they'll get here, especially if that person is joining at a lower stage in the Indian football to rise up the ranks. So that's where I think, if he can make himself sort of comfortable there and fit in, then I don't really see that, there would be a, sort of, uh, any sort of disregard for him. I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody is open to seeing great talent, and if you can stand out, then most likely you will you should make it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chelston Pinto. He also has his own fitness setup. So it's called RSF, Rapid Sports Fitness. Any questions that you have, drop in the comments below or follow him on his socials. I'm going to link it in the description. And Chelston, is there anything that you need to tell to our viewers or our listeners?
Well, I think just one last thing I'd like to say is, if you have a goal in mind, or if there's something that you're really passionate about, then, do everything possible to make that happen. And there is no substitute to hard work, obviously, but be sincere with yourself. I mean, there's a lot of times, even for me, when I was growing up, I thought I was doing the right things, but, you know, maybe I was doing the right things 80% of the time, and 20% of the time I wasn't. And, growing up, now when I think about it, that 20% of the time was probably why I felt left out initially. So, if there's something that you want to do and pursue professionally, it might not always work, but give it 100% and, do it sincerely, do it with all your heart. And, even if that doesn't work out, most probably something else that you like or really love will work out. Thank you.